imagine some of you are starting to suffer from webinar fatigue. So for this year, we'll try to keep it short and sweet. Today's afternoon is specifically targeted at GLAMs, so galleries, libraries, archives, and museums, but open to all who have an interest in opening up heritage collections. With this event, we hope to raise awareness about issues around copyright, preventing access to and reuse of public domain heritage collections, as well as provide a showcase for heritage institutions to show their projects in which they are practically opening up public domain collections. However, making public domain collections available is not only a legal and policy-related issue, but also a technical one. And in order to help institutions to determine the right status of their collections, we have developed a tool called the Public Domain Tool, which my colleague Bart Magnus will present later. As with previous editions, we will conclude our Public Domain Day celebration with the announcement of the winners of Wikimedia Belgium's photography contest, Wiki Loves Heritage. This is an initiative set up to increase the amount of freely licensed image of cultural heritage in Belgium. And finally, I would like to invite you to use the following hashtags indicated in the bottom right corner of your screen to increase the visibility of this event for the heritage sector at large and towards other communities organizing Public Domain Day. First, I think it's useful to agree on what the public domain actually constitutes. So the public domain is made up of all the creative works to which no exclusive intellectual property rights apply. These rights may have expired. They may have been forfeited by the rights holder. They may have been expressly waived during publication itself, or they may be inapplicable, since not all heritage institutions attract copyright, or because copyright did not exist at the time of the collection's creation. In Belgium, copyright on published works expire 70 years after the author's death and expire on the 1st January on the year following the protection term. This means that Belgian works of creators who passed away in 1950 are now in the public domain. You may have seen various logos indicating that an object is in the public domain, such as the one on the top right corner of the present slide. But it is important to stress that a public domain mark is not a license. It is a statement which indicates that the public domain status of an item. Licenses are meant to accompany objects that are under copyright and are therefore only issued by the rights holder of the object. Similarly, CC0 is simply a legal status. It is used when a right holder waives their rights. This means that there is no longer any copyright protection, and therefore it is not really technically a license. While we give a lot of attention to copyright as a factor to consider in opening up cultural heritage, other rights may apply, such as neighboring rights. So in the case of a recent execution, for instance, of a public domain piece of music, well, in that case, the performers might still enjoy a neighboring right. Other things to consider are privacy rights, and there are some other things I will not get into now. The Open Glam community, of which this initiative is a part, promotes showing this information clearly and correctly through rights statements and moving away from limiting access of reuse by claiming copyright on your public domain collections. The duration of copyright term varies greatly between different jurisdictions. So in Europe and in many other countries, the term of protection is set to 70 years after the death of the author. But in other countries, such as China, copyright only extends to 50 or 60 years after the life of the creator has ended. And Mexico has a particularly long protection term extending to 100 years after the death of the author. So as I said, happy Public Domain Day to all. Why is this a reason to celebrate, you ask? Well, in theory, copyright is intended to promote creativity during an artist's lifetime or to provide a source of income for the artist family in case of an untimely death. The goal of copyright from the perspective of the author is to promote creativity by ensuring temporary monopoly on the intellectual property, but it also ensures that those rights last for a limited time, so that when they expire, works can go into the public domain, where future authors can legally build upon these sources of inspiration. Since many works of art in some shape or form build on work of other artists, it is essential that cultural expressions do not remain monopolized forever. And one could argue that the extensions of copyright protection beyond the initial 50-year term of the original Berne Convention, which sort of basically harmonized copyright in the 19th century. One could argue that these extensions disrupt this balance. Throughout the time of an artist's life, artists have built upon the work of other artists. An example here, Tom Lanois is able to not only use the work of Shakespeare without permission, but its public domain status also awards him the freedom to adapt, to blend, and to rework different Shakespeare stories into something that works in a contemporary setting and is somehow new. And if we bring this back to this year's Public Domain Day, since the copyright of, for instance, The Great Gatsby expired at the beginning of this year, it will be possible for artists to do the same for this work. And apparently, former rights holders are also aware of this. The late author's great-granddaughter of F. Scott Fitzgerald, Blake Hazard, has said in an interview, "We are now looking forward to a new period and are trying to view this with enthusiasm, knowing that some exciting things may come." So they are publicly speaking out about that. This event has been targeted to heritage professionals because the change of the legal status of a work does not automatically ensure that these works are automatically available in a practical sense. We organize Public Domain Day for raising awareness around how copyright protection is not necessarily in the interest of advancing the goals of publicly funded heritage institutions. For instance, many heritage institutions are still attaching restrictive licenses to reproductions of work in their care, which impedes their maximum circulation. And if collections are not well known, they are possibly less valued, they are less likely to be less studied, well taken care of, and ultimately preserved. We also want to provide a platform for sharing best practices concerning the appropriate use of tools, such as tools intended to communicate the right status of an object or getting institutions to engage with the wider Open Glam movement. And last of all, Public Domain Day is also intended to highlight lesser known artists, the work of lesser known artists whose work may have received less exposure because of systemic discrimination. Looking back, though I myself have not been involved from the beginning of Public Domain Day in Belgium, there has been a community that's slowly growing, and there have been events for 6 years now, and we are happy to see you again here in 2021. But I also want to just highlight that also elsewhere Public Domain Day is celebrated. These are just 2 examples of other celebrations around the world. At my institution, MEMO, and previously PACT, we have been accompanying the heritage sector with making their collections available as linked open data for a number of years, and found the Wikimedia platforms to be a great place to start experimenting. We joined the organization of Public Domain Day in order to move away from one-off experiments and get a dynamic going where institutions could release work on a regular basis and share their experiences. So far, we have helped a heritage institution upload somewhere around 10,000 images to Wikimedia Commons. Unfortunately, I can't show you the like what the visibility that this creates, because Wikimedia has analytics tools for that, but they're currently down. But I can tell you that it's typically quite a lot more than institutional websites, and that furthermore, lesser known works often attract a niche audience. So it's quite interesting for the visibility of your collections. We also want to highlight initiatives outside of Belgium. The Creative Commons and Europeana networks are doing great work, such as, for example, the Open Glam blog, which is a place where you as a heritage practitioner can share your work, your experiences, and your projects related to opening up digital collections. And another community worth checking out is the one surrounding the Sharing is Caring conferences. They are having a 10-year anniversary conference on the 22nd and 23rd of March this year. Yeah, we ourselves have organized a little spin-off conference in Brussels a couple of years ago. And we're also going to share our experiences on what has changed in the meantime at that conference. Furthermore, social media provides an opportunity to get in touch and follow the work of heritage practitioners around the world. A good place to start, maybe, the Open Glam Twitter account is a great place to keep abreast of others who are doing this kind of work and to get inspired. It's even possible to ask to take over this account for a week to show your own work, if that's something you would like to do. Last thing I would like to show is the Open Glam survey. It's a project which inventories all institutions that have taken some step or another to move towards opening up public domain works. It is maintained by researcher Andrea Wallace and by Europeana's Douglas McCarthy. And one of the things it has shown is how varied interpretation of open can be. So this is basically the best resource of all the different institutions around the world that have done something to open up collections. And as you can see from the slide, there are also quite a few Belgian institutions on there at this point, but I feel like we could very easily add a couple more since the last time that we contacted each other. So I already told you that we have been uploading images and data to Wikimedia platforms as a sort of testing ground for institutions to experiment with linked open data publication. But at some point, however, it's important to also position yourself as an Open Glam institution. It is also important for others to know where your institution stands. So just to give you a very practical example, so this is a discussion page connected to an image that was released on Wikimedia Commons of public domain work in the context of Public Domain Day. And I find out that some Wikimedia users will notice the lack of explicit policy change on the institution's website and flag the upload for possible deletion for fear that this upload might have not been supported by the institution, even though that really was the case. We have done this together with the Fine Art Museum of Ghent. So voila, so it's important to experiment, but then at some point gradually move towards sort of outing yourself as an Open Glam. With Public Domain Day, we want to give a platform to actors in the heritage sector that are making public domain materials publicly available. So how do we go about this every year? At Memo, for Public Domain Day, we have mostly been focusing on visual artists. So what we do every year is we run a query based on the database Wikidata to find out which artists have died 70 years ago. So that's what you're seeing on this slide. And then we filter for the Belgian ones. And then we try to get institutions with work of these artists involved to release some of these works. And as you can see here, this is the list that I drew for this year. Since last year, we have extended our the things we do around Public Domain Day. So we have also started organizing a rights workshop for people from institutions to get a little bit deeper into that part of the issue. And then later in the year, we organize our public domain Wikimedia upload workshop, where we accompany organizations by making their own data donation to Wikidata and to Wikimedia Commons. And as you can see, there was quite a list of organizations that participated, and some of the people who will present later during this presentation, they participated to this workshop. So let's start with an upload, which is not directly linked to an artist who died in 1950, but is nonetheless public domain. So the Jacob Smits Museum is a small regional museum focusing on the Dutch-Belgian painter Jacob Smits. In previous years, we had already uploaded the data and the reproductions of the work of the artist Jacob Smits himself. He has been part of the public domain for a long time. And this year, we have worked together with the museum to add the works of other artists of the so-called School of Mol, or the School of Mol, of other artists who were drawn to the Campine region in the northeast of Belgium to go paint there, along with Jacob Smits, which is the second part of the collection of the Jacob Smits Museum. And we were unable to release all of them because the work of some of these artists is still under copyright because they died at a later time as 1950. And for a small number of works, no quality reproductions exist yet, so we couldn't possibly release them. But nevertheless, we really like to show this example because it shows that linked open data does not necessarily have to be the domain of larger institutions who can leverage the funding to, for instance, set up their own linked data infrastructure. And in fact, at this point, we could say that the Jacob Smits Museum is the closest thing in Belgium to a fully open access institution. So that's really something we are quite proud of. Another upload that I myself I'm going to present is the upload of the Fine Arts Museum in Ghent. So as you see, there were a couple of artists which died in 1950. Arie van de Giese, of which you can see a painting on the right side of the slide. Armand Appel, Edmond van de Vijvere, and Joseph de Koene, and also Anna de Weert. And we have uploaded their images to Wikimedia Commons. So yeah, I would like to just demonstrate what this really means in terms of visibility. So on the top left part of this slide, you see what the article looks like before. So there was a image of Anna de Weert, but it's basically a reproduction of a painting that was made of her by her teacher, Emile Claus, and not a painting by her. But now, after the upload, we were able to add a gallery of her own work to Wikimedia Commons, which greatly increases the quality of the content that's available there. And of course, Wikipedia is a multilingual platform, so yeah, it's formatted a bit weirdly here, but basically the same gallery is shown on the French-speaking article. And what's quite interesting is that it makes sense to sort of have a proactive approach as an institution, because I also noticed that I uploaded the reproduction of the institution of this image online, but there are some people that were actually quicker, and that in the beginning of January got the reproduction elsewhere and uploaded it. And it means that the community is exercising their rights by making these works available. So it's actually best that you do it yourself, because then you can add metadata and those kind of things. And then I would like to give the floor to the people from the KBR to let them talk about their uploads for this year. So I'm going to stop sharing my, just a second. Alina, can you make sure that I stop sharing? Or okay, I think I'm out of it now. Okay, great. Sebastian, can you share your screen?
I'm trying to do that.
Fantastic.
Is this working? No, it's not. If not, I only have 2 slides, so it's not that.
It is working.
Looks good, yeah.
It's good?
It was.
Yes.
No.
Is
Yes.
it okay? Yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Sebastian Hermans from the Royal Library of Belgium, and I'm proud to present the work we have done the last few weeks, Pete Janssens and myself mostly, to upload in Wikidata and in Wiki Commons collection data and the images of 4 Belgian artists, maybe lesser known artists, as some spoke about these things. We were considering, yes, people, artists or creators who died in 1950. Who, what can we do with? What do we have in KBR? And so the idea came to choose 4 collection items in the Brussels coin cabinet, the coin and medals cabinet of the Royal Library, the National Numismatic Collections in Belgium, in which we found a lot of items actually from Oscar Bergmans, Jacques Marin, and Pierre Teunis. Of these 3 sculptors and medalists, because yeah, these arts come together mostly, we have put collection descriptions in as much as detail as possible in Wikidata, and we in the meantime we try to find if images, if we have them. If not, we digitize them and put metadata in it. And so the results are there. We uploaded images of medals of these 3 guys, and as you can see there, numismatic collection items have obviously 2 sides, front and a back, a recto and a verso. And so it was kind of an exercise to put these 2 images properly in the Wikidata descriptions, and also, of course, first in Commons. But we encountered some problems along the way. I'm not going into detail, but I just mentioned the major issues. Numismatic collection items in our catalog don't have like a clear title. And so we had to make labels and descriptions a bit on the information we could retrieve, the data we could retrieve from the catalog. That was an exercise as well, and maybe this can be like an idea for further uploads of this kind of items. Another problem was that a little bit by miscommunication, there was a premature upload of these data in Wikidata, which meant that I had to repair that via Google spreadsheets and quick statements and Excel, which took more time than I expected. And another thing is that we could not find for all those uploaded data images for all of them. And so we are now in the process of digitizing the missing images for the items we described. And so in 2021, we hope very soon actually to finish this and complete the Wikidata items and the Commons collections. One thing before uploaded these images. The Brussels coin cabinets, or the coin and metals cabinets of the Royal Library, was very underrepresented, we think, in Wikimedia. There was only like an image, not from us, but I think from Paul Hermans, I think, of the tetradrachma of Etna, one of the most famous coins in the world. But apart from that, there was no information at all, or data on collection items in the coins cabinet. So we hope we have done something to make these kind of collections, although it is maybe a niche and mostly for a specialized audience. Still, we think it is interesting to put this data in linked open data online. In the process, we have like mostly because of the premature upload, we have found that there is easily, because this upload was made by an intern, although in digital humanities, but there is like a misconception sometimes about what is the catalog ID and what is the inventory number or call number. And so we decided that if we continue putting our data and collection data in Wikidata, it should be like handy to have a property for our own unique catalog ID. So we proposed such a property, and this has been accepted a week ago or so, and is now applied for all items from KBR in Wikidata. We also had to create an item for our online catalog to do that. And we also created items here and there. For example, an item for a model for reduction lot. I don't even know how to pronounce it in English. Reductie bankpenning, which is some very peculiar type of numismatic object. And also in the former slide, you saw that we uploaded 63 images of works of Armand Appol, of which MSK has also uploaded one item. These are prints, and along the way, we were thinking maybe we should also, for numismatic objects, and for prints and engravings and etchings and stuff, there are maybe properties to be proposed as well. One for the stamp stand, which defines the relation between the front and the back side, the orientation. Now we used a property orientation, but that's not really ideal. So maybe for numismatic objects, stamp stand would be like a great property. We could launch a proposal soon. And for engravings, we think that a property for the state of an engraving, of an etching, could be very useful. A famous example of this is the Three Crosses by Rembrandt, which is represented in, I think, the Wikipedia page of state printmaking. And so we think we uploaded last year also a lot of etchings, engravings, prints from Ensor in different states, and that's quite important to identify and this particular kind of artworks. And so we would like to discuss this with collection professionals or the curators of the two departments concerned within KBR, but of course it is applicable for all numismatic and objects and prints. Now, since we have a known property for our catalog ID, most items we described before in the last year, over 1,000 actually, they contain, like, I think at least, an overkill of references to to this catalog IDN. For example, we use properties P528 for the catalog code. There is a property P973, I guess, for the URL where it's described. Then we have reference URLs for all statements linking to the public catalog of KBR. Then there is the inventory number, which also contains like a link to the URL and so on and so on. And so maybe this is not needed anymore. It would ease a lot further uploads. And so we have to internally look how to deal with this problem. And also look maybe or see what other institutions do in this respect. And at last, of course, very important is mentioned by some as well. An appropriate use of the uploaded material in Wikipedia pages to promote visibility of these collections is foreseen. And so, for example, I managed to in the descriptions of numismatic items to add a property which puts also the inscriptions on this object in a statement. And also I used, for example, the P180 statement depicts when, for example, King Albert I during the Great War is depicted with a helmet, for example. And I think these items could like be used on certain pages, so it would make the collection much more visible. So this is a to-do. This is an important one. We could organize an editathon around it or something. We will see this year, according to the situation and how it changes, things might be possible. So I think, yeah, that's it for what we did with the KBR collection data. I think I can pass the word to my colleague Anne for explanation on the ISNI project.
For practical reasons, Seb, could you continue sharing your screen? So
okay, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I'll quickly introduce a brand new international network we are coordinating. It was funding of BELSPO, Scientific Belgian Policy Office. It is with world-class partners, and the aim is precisely to promote the use of linked open data and ISNI. It's an international standard name identifier, because if you put cultural heritage online, it's also very important to have an international standard to identify the author or other relators to the work. It's also an advantage if you put, if you use ISNI, it's a combination of numbers, then in any language, people can understand that it's about this author that we are speaking. You can quickly review the partners. Library of Congress, they have put all of their reference data, their thesauri, online in 2019. So they have a year to evaluate, and we're really interested in learning about their experiences and also, yeah, how they how they implemented this integration. You can see some more really important partners like British Library, OCLC, who has published a lot of research reports also on linked open data. Yeah, and is an international agency as well. Seb, you can move to the next slide, please.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is a nice network, but how will it contribute to more cultural heritage in the public domain? Because that's what we are talking about. The goal of the network is sharing knowledge, expertise, best practices, and learnings, a bit like Memo does in Belgium. We want to promote the use of ISNI and linked open data. we want to provide quality information on these topics, also training. And we're going to participate in, and we're also going to organize conferences. One of the conferences we proposed a panel session, for instance, is LIBER, the League of Research Libraries. So I hope we'll be able to do that. It's about the pros and the contras of sharing your data via Wiki data. If you want more information, you can go to this webpage. For the time being, it's really elementary, the information, because we've had our first kickoff meeting only yesterday evening. So we'll soon add more activities, add more information, but this is the place to be if you want to stay tuned. Then we'll move to the next slide. Yeah, I mentioned that ISNI, the international agency, was a partner. They already have a project, a very important project in the pipeline. Before summer, they will release the full central database as linked data. They will do this under a public domain, I can't say license, but copyright status. They will provide the URIs, as they already do. You will be able to query the database via API and web search interface. They will also provide downloadable data dumps, which they will refresh every 6 months. And the formats they're going to offer, well, HTML, that's for the URIs, but then for the linked data, it's RDF, XML, or JSON linked data. You can find more information and technical documentation on the webpage I've indicated. So for any archive or library or Glam institution who is interested in adding ISNI numbers to their local authorities, well, I would say check the page because it will very soon be available. By the way, KBR is since October last year also ISNI registration agencies. So for all the authorities we have in our catalog, we'll soon do a bulk load submission and we'll get ISNI numbers for Belgians who aren't registered yet in the database. Yeah, you can switch to the next one. Yeah, so I've already told you, KBR, our catalog, for the time being, the online public catalog, it shows a lot of bibliographic descriptions, but on the back end, the back office, we also have a complete thesaurus, treasure, or name file of persons and authorities. When we've opened our brand new KBR museum, the baseline was Belgium has been hiding a treasure for 600 years. They refer to the manuscripts of the Dukes of Burgundy, of course, but in fact, KBR has another hidden treasure we'll soon make available, and it's our name authority file. We'll do that via our online catalog, so you won't only be able to look at the descriptions of our documents, but also the authorities. And we also plan to make our authority file available as linked open data. Well, that's it. If you're interested, stay tuned. You can always contact me as well. My mail is on the website of LOT ISNI. KBR is at your service. Yeah, that's it.
All right, I exit the...
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Seems very interesting. I also like all the information of Sebastian, where you show you're not only putting data out there, but you're interacting with the community on how it should be modeled. And then I think we can move on with the presentation of Alexander Soetaert from the museums.
Yes, I'm sharing my screen, so I hope you can all see it. No. So everyone can see the screen. Some, can you give a sign if it's okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Alexander Soetaert. I work for the Cultural Policy Office of the City of Bruges. Today I'll present an upload of 525 archaeological finds from the inner city of Bruges. This upload fits within a wider project funded by the Flemish community. We have a lot of cultural heritage data that might be of interest to international audiences and are currently investigating how we can reach these audiences by making our data searchable in a multilingual way. Most of the finds are household goods such as plates, jars, or cups, but there are also more remarkable objects such as ice skates from the 14th or 15th centuries, or a bear skull dating from the early Middle Ages. Many objects originate from other regions in Europe or even in Asia, which gives the collection a great potential for international audiences. There are only few Belgian archaeological collections on Wikidata and Wikimedia Commons so far. So also in this way, this is a sort of pioneer project. In fact, we conducted two separate uploads. First, metadata were uploaded to Wikidata, and second, the images were uploaded to Wikimedia Commons. And then in a third step, we connected the images and the metadata on both platforms. Still, there were a few challenges we had to overcome. First, within the cultural heritage institutions, there often concrete arrangements regarding the copyright on reproductions of 3D objects were lacking, especially when the photographs were made by members of staff. So we had to sort this out. Another challenge is that it remains unclear if the interest for the archaeological finds will be as high as for the paintings of the Groningen Museum that were uploaded a few years ago. It seems like the number of members of the Wikimedia community that is interested in archaeological objects is smaller than that interested in art. For the Groningen Museum, we see that the data are frequently updated, that labels are being translated into several other languages. So this might be different for archaeological collections. We'll have to see that, but it might also change quickly if more archaeological finds become available. But after all, the Wikimedia platforms offer important opportunities for organization. First of all, the fact that Wikidata is multilingual was important within this project. By reconciling values with Wikidata properties and items, the finds can now be queried in English, French, German, and many more languages. We also plan to examine if we can use the multilingual data from Wikidata to build new applications that are directed specifically to international audiences. Together with the curators of the collections, we also decided to compose English translations for the label and descriptions fields in Wikidata ourselves. This was because it was not always easy to reconcile a specific archaeological terminology with existing properties or items. I think the same was true for the collection of the KBR, as we heard. So we solved it in this way. So with these official translations, we achieved a kind of a compromise between making the find searchable and also providing accurate descriptions. And second opportunity is that the Wikidata query service offers more visualization features than our own platforms. On our own platform, it is already possible to show the places of discovery on a map, but with a query service, we can easily also do this for the places of origin and production. This makes it possible, for instance, to see at a glance where the finds were produced or where they originate from, as you can see on this map. Technically speaking, we could also do this on our own platform, but of course, this would ask specific development. So it's a standard feature on Wikipedia. So that's also on Wikidata. So that's also very nice. If you would like to see more queries for Bruges, then please visit my Wikidata user page and you will have more possibilities to discover the archaeological and art collections from the city of Bruges. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Alexander.
I will
and
try to
for making
unshare.
it more tangible with the really nice distribution map. And then I think we will go to the presentation of Stan Peters from Musée.
Yes, I will share my screen. Does everyone see the slide from Musée?
Yes, thank you.
We can see the slide.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stijn Peters and I work at Musée. Musée is a museum in Ostend in Belgium. And as part of a digital collection registration project that was funded by the Flemish government, as called in Dutch Inhaalbeweging Digitale Collectieregistratie, we uploaded the artworks and data about artworks and images of these artworks from 10 artists, James Ensor, Constant Permeke, Leon Spiliaert, Victor Servranckx, Frits van den Berge, Edgar Tijdgat, Georges van Tongelo, Jules Malzighaug, Pierre-Louis Flouquet, and ELT Meesens. From these 10 artists, we have 751 records in our collection management system. And 4 of these artists are in public domain, Ensor, Spiliaert, Van den Berge, and Schmalzighaug. In Wikidata, we uploaded all data about these 751 records. We noticed that 695 items already existed in the Wikidata, but we added more data, so we supplemented these items. 65 items were new in Wikidata. To upload images in Wikimedia Commons, we looked at the artists with artworks in public domain. So the artworks from Ensor, Spiliaert, Van den Berge, and Schmalzighaug. These were 518 records, and we added 717 images to these records because they're not only paintings or etchings or drawings, but some records are also books which contains illustrations by artists or magazines with illustrations, or some records are a series of multiple lithographs. So sometimes there are more images to one record. So if you go to the website of Wikimedia Commons, you have a category images from museum, upload 1. And you can see the 717 images we've uploaded the several weeks that are from the beginning of January from Ensor, Spiliaert, Van den Berge, and Schmalzighaug. So this was what I wanted to present you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we can now move on to the presentation of the Flanders Architecture Institute. Wim, can you share your slides?
Yes, I'm trying to.
You can see your slides, perfect.
Yes, okay. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Wim. I work for the Flanders Architecture Institute. And that's an organization working on architecture, on design, the built environment, and so on. So we have also a collection on from archives concerned with architecture and urbanism. And for this public domain day, I wanted to introduce very shortly 2 projects we did or are doing, and that have something to do with public domain in the Wikimedia platforms. And the first is a project called Persistent Architecture. So it's also a project that was funded by the Flemish government, and that ran from 2018 to 2020. And it was concerned about some archives in our collection that mainly consisted of drawings or prints or pictures that were for the greatest part in the public domain. And we wanted to register them on the level of an object, because at archives we do not always register something at the level of an object. And we also wanted to publish them in a persistent, durable way. And after that, we did some tests of sharing or distributing the persistent data on different platforms. And one of the tests we did, and probably the most important test we did was sharing the data with Wikidata. So we published 665 records of our drawings and prints in the collection on Wikidata. You can find them on the query here, on this query. And as a matter of test, we also digitized a selection of 61 drawings, and we published them on Wikimedia Commons to find out, or to experiment what the potential is of publishing these in an integrated way on a multilingual platform, and also to test indeed the multiple visualization methods or ways in which you can visualize the data. So this is, for example, a screenshot of an image grid that you can create from a Wikidata query. All the details are very recently published in a case study on CEST. So if you are interested in all the challenges we had and the reasons why we did it and the potential we see in it, you can read it on the case study on CEST. Then the second project that's now coming under steam is called Wiki Women Design. And that's a project that aims to bring women that were very important for Belgian design into the light. So the problem we want to solve actually is that women are underrepresented in the historiography of the design discipline. And we want to do something with that to come to a more balanced historiography. What we want to do with this is actually we have a participatory approach with which we want to involve students and volunteers to gather information about women designers in Belgium and to publish the data or the information on Wikipedia. So we work with a great network of interested partners. And we organized several editathons at different venues during the whole of 2021. It's also a project that's funded by the Flemish government, and we work together with Wikimedia Belgium that supports us very much with organizing all the editathons. We also hope to find with the project some interesting archives or heritage collection about women designers, so that also can help as source material for to bring more women to the light in historiography. Now, what has this to do with public domain? So we encourage everyone actually to add free-to-use public domain material to Wikimedia Commons. So it can be used in Wikipedia articles. So we got a category, Wiki Women Design 2020-2021 on Wikimedia Commons. And it already had some results. So we had some editathons in December last year. And these are just it's a selection of Wikipedia articles in which you can see that public domain material is being used. I, for myself, as an archivist, was very pleased to see an archival document used on a Wikipedia article. It's something that you do not see very much. But I think projects like this show you that that can work to get more material on Wikimedia Commons and to make heritage more visible by use of Wikipedia articles, for example. So that's it for the VI. If you want more information on Wiki Women Design, just check out wikiwomendesign.be, or you can just read some of the articles. And everybody who is interested to write along with us, that's very welcome on one of the editathons. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Wim. So now we'll proceed to a presentation by the Photography Museum of Antwerp. Alexander, you have been made co-host, so now you're able to normally share your screen.
Ça va.
Take your time. Perfect.
All right. I don't know if this is visible.
You just have to go full screen to presentation. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. So, hi, I'm Alexander. I work as a project associate in the Photo Museum. This is our first active participation in the Public Domain Day. So we asked our collection registrator which photographers have deceased more than 70 years ago, so we can make them publicly accessible. We mostly posted on it on our social media and on our website and newsletters and these kinds of things. We are going to, because I haven't been able to do this yet, but we're going to upload the images to Wikimedia Commons and also link them to the correct Wikidata item. At the moment, for this year, it were 4 photographers or publishers, and in total 68 images. Actually, it's actually more, but some of them have not been digitized yet. So the 68 are the ones that have already been digitized and are accessible on our catalog. And the 2 most important photographers of the 4 that were that fell in the public domain this year are Ferdinand Buyle and Charles Gaspard. From Ferdinand Buyle, you can see a picture on the right top. He was a very important pictorial photographer. This is a portrait of Max Rolses, a writer and a literary critic, and also he used to be the curator of the Planten en Moretus Museum in Antwerp. And Charles Gaspard on the left bottom, who is, no, sorry, I did it the other way around. Charles Gaspard is the important photographer of the pictorialism, and Ferdinand Buyle is a portrait photographer who was very renowned in his time. Yeah, for the other things that we are doing in the Photo Museum around public domain is that we are also making part. We're going to define a certain collection of our entire collection that we have to upload them on Wikimedia Commons. This is a bit of a hassle, I think, for our museum or for other museums who have very big collection, in contrast to museums who have smaller collections, because you have to make a decision of like, okay, what are we going to upload and what is interesting to upload, so you don't overload Commons with images that might not being able to be used by people. So I think this is also something, if other museums or GLAMs have issues with this, I think this is something that we should also think about in the future or in the next public domain days. And we're also working on a project where we are going to use the software behind Wikidata, which is called Wikibase, to implement this for a project as a database. But this is still in the early phase. So hopefully in the next years, I will be able to tell you more about this. Voila, that was it for me. Oh, stop sharing. Voila.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Can anybody see my screen? I should be sharing it right now.
You just unshared it, I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, can you really see it the way, because it doesn't appear?
Yeah, it's full screen now.
Okay, super. Another thing I would like to show is Art in Flanders. So Art in Flanders is actually part of MEMO. So it's an organization that organizes quality digitizations for museums and heritage institutions, and also makes them available on the Art in Flanders platform, and monetizes them for the institutions themselves. So there's also quite an interesting example, because we are moving towards an open data policy, and this is quite interesting because as a constitutive part of MEMO, Flanders, Art in Flanders originally, of course, created with the idea in mind of monetizing images. So we're seeing how we can combine or switch to a open data policy. But what is interesting here, that the example here shows that we also are sometimes struggling to implement best practices, because in the work that Art in Flanders is doing, we also depend on the policy of our partners, so the museums and institutions for which we work. So Art in Flanders is now offering all images of public domain works on our platform for those content partners who have agreed to make this policy shift. So this means that, first of all, that the accompanying metadata indicates that the image is free of right claims. Secondly, the image will also be available for download in a resolution of 2000 pixels long, which should fill a standard computer screen in sRGB color space or optimized for screens, free of charge. So why CC0, you may ask, if you think back of the first part of the presentation that I give. This has been the standard thus far also at many other institutions publishing public domain images in a context where it is, or it was still unsure if reproductions or certain metadata are subject to copyright. So exactly because it is unclear, we continue to use CC0, because in practice, this makes no difference to the end user. They are able to use this free of rights. And also other reasons. The contracts that Art in Flanders has with their partners still includes a rights transfer clause. There are also some practical difficulties, because even if we do start using the public domain mark, it would be possible for reproductions of 2D works, but we would still have to use CC0 for reproductions of 3D works. And we would have to find a way to sort of search which ones that are that way and separate them from the rest. So there's a couple of technical reasons why this is taking some time. In any case, the intention behind using CC0 is to make sure that if there would be any rights, they would have been waived by the institution. We'll have to see if the implementation of the EU Copyrights Directive in Belgian law, the deadline for that is June 2021, will perhaps make this unnecessary. The term license, which you see on this slide, is also not technically completely correct. We are aware of that, but here it's simply a development issue which we have to resolve, and we want to resolve soon. But will require some work with the web developer and also requires some budget. We have tried implementing certain best practices. So for instance, explaining what the right status of the image actually means. Instead of demanding recognition of the collection managing institutions based on a copyright claim, of recognition of Art in Flanders as a platform and the photographer for making the reproduction, for which there is no legal basis, we opt for merely requesting it as a token of their appreciation for the services of the institutions that created the reproduction. We do still collect data on how the image is used, but also if you select other purposes, as you can see in this slide, for instance, commercial use, you will get the same image. And we collect the data because our partners, the collecting institutions, prefer to get some information about what the image is going to be used for. We also included an explanatory page on the platform, which gives you further information about what you can and cannot do with the images in human languages. But there is, of course, an exception. The situation is different when you want an image from an institution that has not chosen to change their rights policy, or not yet. As a service provider, Memo aims to make images available as freely as possible. However, even concerning the images that are no longer protected in copyright, we have to consider the wishes of the collection administrators, our partners. And they decide under which rights statements or licenses we can and are allowed to disclose the images of their heritage objects. This means that the rights statement or license may differ depending on the collection or even by heritage object. For instance, for the collection of the St. Bavo Cathedral in Ghent, who have as of yet not changed their policy, we will continue to offer the image under the as download under the non-derivative, non-commercial license, which you see here on the slide. So Memo does aim to make images of public domain works available under CC zero rights license as much as we can. And after agreement with collection administrators, more images under the CC zero rights statement will gradually be freed. And in fact, the large majority of collection administrators have already agreed to CC zero. So in real life terms, like actually quite a lot of content has been made freely available. And then one last slide. So one of the KPIs that Memo has is that we plan to make all public domain reproductions on the platform, for which our partners are agreed to publish them on Wikimedia Commons with no restrictions. 2023.
Can you please come help?
Somebody needs to be muted. All right, so we are running a little bit late, but we have a question moment here available. So I would like to ask my colleagues who have taken a look at the chat if there's some things that we definitely need to answer right now. Let's see.
Ik heb nog geen vraag gezien, maar...
Okay. Is there somebody who would like to ask their question? You're normally able to unmute yourself and...
Yes, please.
Okay.
Can I ask my question, Sam?
Yeah, sure. Is this Paul?
Yes.
Paul Heijmans? Yes, sure.
I'm not particularly happy that museums are offering their data to Wikidata, because one of my hobbies was to photograph works of art in Belgium. So, but I have a specific question. I've asked it before, but there is some discussion within the Wikimedia community. Can I take a picture of a work of art published in a book of art of an artist who died more than 70 years ago? Are there restrictions? Can the editor resist to, can the original photographer say no? That's my question.
I think that would be classified as an embedded work. Well, I believe that there the question is again, who made this, if you're talking about an illustration in a book, for instance.
Yes, yes.
That the illustration also has to be public domain, really, if you want to.
Yes, if the creator died more than 70 years ago.
In Belgian copyright, yes. So,
and you also have to take into account the intellectual property of the photographer.
Okay.
The photographic rights. So
he can claim again his copyright on a work of art that has been created more than 70 years ago.
Yes, that's the author of the illustrated work, but there are also neighboring rights, and a photographer who takes a picture of the work also has IP rights on the photograph itself. Okay. So you can't simply take a picture and then say, this is mine, I can do whatever I want with it.
Okay. Except of course if the person who made the embedded work has died 70 years ago, basically. Or
yeah, if both the photographer and the artist have died, then I believe it would be. But
can I say something? I don't think that's true. I think if it is just like a realistic reproduction of a work as an illustration in another work, but without any additional artistic values to it in the creation, like a photograph of something that is in the public domain, I don't think there is. And how could it then be found back from where it comes? So I don't think there are copyrights on authors' rights on faithful reproductions without any artistic additional features.
I'm not so sure, but
yeah,
check with the photographer. Yeah.
If I follow, I think the confusion here stems that I think on you think an example of an embedded photograph, and I think me and Sebastian are thinking about an embedded embedded recent photograph, and we are thinking about an embedded illustration of maybe an old work that might be public domain or something.
Well, I'm speaking from my experience as a former publisher. A photographer delivered photos for a certain book, and then we made a second edition of the book, and we had to pay the fee again to publish the photos. But,
yes,
I think we should. I'm not a legal advisor, so.
It depends. It's like if it is a photograph of like a three-dimensional work, like a statue or something, then there is the perspective of the photographer, which makes the photograph a protected item. But if it's a reproduction by picture, by photography of, for example, a two-dimensional painting or whatever, I don't think there are any intellectual rights to the photographer for that.
Erik here from Kikirpa. The problem with photography of works of art is indeed that there is a group that says because if a work of art is in public domain and there's no artistic or intellectual or whatever exercise done to make a photograph, then it's in public domain too. And the other group that says every photograph taken by everybody has there are certain rights on it because it is like that. It is not clear yet in our domain. So there is no legislation on what is true or what is not true. So the only thing that will happen is that when you use it and somebody does not agree, that there is a process in court, and then you can win or you can lose. So until there is no clear definition in the law, we will never solve this problem in it. But I think it's a good idea to go on with trying to be as open as possible. But the discussion about the photographic rights is a complicated one, and we are not sortis de l'auberge.
So I'll take the risk and publish them on Commons and see what happens.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Because Commons is hosted in the US, and the US is pretty clear about old work being in the public domain, photographs of public domain work being in the public domain too. I guess Wikimedia wouldn't have an issue with it, but it might be that the Belgian government could come after us.
Okay. Well, actually, I've just noticed that we are running a bit late, so maybe we can move the rest of the questions to the end of the presentations and move on.
Okay.
So can I ask my colleague Bart to share a screen to show us what the public domain tool is all about?
Yes, do you see my screen? It's still loading, I see. Do you see it now?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, great. Well, so the next 15 minutes, I'll try to guide you through the public domain tool, which is a tool that Memo made mainly in the second half 2020, which has just well, today is actually the official launch of the tool. Let's say the tool is in Dutch, as you can see. It's available on publicdomeintool.be. So the tool is in Dutch. It's ready to be used for anybody who has some basic knowledge of Dutch, let's say. But I will do this introduction in English so that the flow of what you can do with this public domain tool is clear for everybody. Why a public domain tool? After today's presentations, I don't have to explain the benefits of maximal online availability of public domain collections. The tool is also really meant as a tool for collection managers to define which collection items are in the public domain, because that's often the big question to start with. Not for all collections. Sometimes it's very clear, but often collections are quite diverse. And the approach that is mainly taken then is to do research one item at a time to see whether this particular collection, collection object is in the public domain, yes or no. And we all know that's very time consuming, and it's not a bad approach, because for some collection items it's really the only way to go, because the rights related to some objects are really complicated, really complex. But in other cases, it's actually quite straightforward if you have the right data at your disposal. So that's what the public domain tool wants to do. It's to be your helping hand, let's say, for bulk operations. So not the one-by-one item approach, but to speed up this identification of public domain content in your collection. What do we need for that? It's first of all your collection data, of course, as a CSV export. It's Wikidata. That's the magic that happens a bit with this tool. It's that we use Wikidata as a central point of bringing data together, your own data, but also the data that is known in the world, let's say, or the data that's known in the world that is published on Wikidata, because that's still a big difference, as we know. We've seen in the presentations also by the colleagues of KBR that the importance of publishing authorities, authority files, also standards such as ISNI that were presented. This is particularly something that will help the quality of the public domain tool a lot forward, because that's really the data that's used by the public domain tool once it's uploaded to Wikidata, to help collection managers define the right status on their collection. And of course, some knowledge about your collection is always comes in handy to make the right decisions. I will play a short video and comment a bit on what happens. So this is the homepage of the tool. You are asked to fill in your email address, the QID number of your organization, which is the unique identifier of the item on Wikidata. In this example, I will show you a demo with data from the Department of Culture in Flanders, which is also the commissioner of this tool. They also own a collection. Then you upload the data. They have to be in a valid CSV. The website explains what valid means, but it means that you have to have the right column headers, date formats that are valid. You see what kind of data are there. ID, creation place, birth dates, date of deaths. The only compulsory field is the ID number. All the rest is optional. But of course, the more data that you can provide, the better the matching will be. So what happens? You upload your CSV. It's being queued, and after a while, you get an email saying that first round has been finished. You find two links in that email: one with your enriched CSV and one with a link where you can move forward to the second round, which I will explain in a while. But first, have a look at the enriched CSV. Let's see, I can put this full screen. This is better now. Okay, so this is the enriched CSV. You recognize what was there a while ago, but some columns have been added. Column H is Wikidata column, Wikidata link next to that. And then the type of creator, which is individual or an organization, and a first indication whether a right status, copyright status will be available or will be possible to determine. Now is the time for the manual work, because we chose to make a manual validation obligatory to use this tool, just for the quality of it, because automatic matching would bring in too much noisy data, let's say. So one by one, we see here the suggestions that the tool offers you for items in Wikidata that correspond to the creators of your items. Most of the time, it's quite straightforward, especially when when you have quite some data available yourself. For example, a birth date and a death date, then it's very quick to decide whether it's the same person, yes or no. Sometimes you have more than one suggestion. The idea is that you only leave the validated item in this column. If a suggestion turns out to be wrong, you just delete the queue number from column H. There's also you can use the queue number and paste it in the search in search field in Wikidata, but you can also directly copy and paste the URL in the column next to it. So sometimes it's quite simple. Sometimes it's a bit more difficult. Sometimes there's no suggestion, like Frans van Montfort and Robert Hoepels in this case. So then we just leave the field blank, and a new Wikidata item will be created in the second round. This is a bit. This is a trickier example. It says Frans Corinth, but Wikidata has Lovis Corinth as the label. So there, okay, a bit knowledge about your collection is helpful to decide whether it's indeed the same person, yes or no. So in my case, I don't have this detailed collection knowledge, so I have to search a bit further, like which other statements are there in Wikidata, external identifiers that can help me to decide whether it's the same person, yes or no. The Dutch Wikipedia article, for example. Okay, and it turns out that I can decide that it's indeed the same person, this Lovis Corinth and Frans Corinth. So I leave it there. Then the last two, Edgard Tijdgat and Felix de Boek. So this is the most time-consuming part, let's say. But I think that what you have to gain in the end will show that this time is well spent. As the last one, I go to Felix de Boek, the Belgian painter. You also see, for example, here that the source data doesn't contain a date of death, but that Wikidata knows that the date of death is 1995. So at a later stage in step 2, in round 2, let's say, this data will also be added to the source data, as we will see in a moment. So I save this CSV and I go to the second link in this email, where I can upload my my CSV again. There is the box right to Wikidata, which is on default, but you can turn it off if you don't want to write your own data to Wikidata. But of course, we encourage you to do so if you know that your data is of good quality, because at a later stage it can help very much other users of the public domain tool. Okay, we get a second email saying that round 2 is finished. I open the CSV, which now contains the completely enriched data, you see that a lot of dates of birth and dates of death have been added on the basis of what is available in Wikidata. You also see a queue number next to each item. Also, even for those items who that didn't have a Wikidata match before, a new Wikidata item is created, and you see the copyright status that has been determined, which is either which is public domain, in copyright, or unknown, depending on the data available, the combined data available both from your source data and the data in Wikidata. Let's see how that looks like in Wikidata. For example, Charles Bischops is one is an artist who was already who had already an item in Wikidata. Let's see what happened. A lot of statements were already there, of course, but we can see that based on the source data, also some data have been added. For example, here the profession painter has been added on the basis of the source data in our CSV, as you can see here. Let's take another example of a painter, an artist who didn't have a Wikidata item before. So you can see here a completely new item added by the public domain tool bot on Wikidata that just translates the data from your CSV tool from your CSV export to clear statements in Wikidata. And you see, even if we don't have a date of birth or a date of death, you have statements like Floriweet, as you saw there, which just takes the creation date of a work and says, well, we know that this person has been active in the year 1919, and even that can already help sometimes to define a copyright status, because if this date is, for example, in 1850, then you can be pretty sure then that the work belongs to the public domain. So this is a very brief overview. Couple of things that I want to show, which actually are not part of the tool itself, but I mean are interesting to see next to it. So we've seen this public domain tool bot that writes collection data to Wikidata, which also shows you that it's linked open data in practice, actually, because you're just starting from a CSV. Some of your collection data are just turned into linked open data on Wikidata. And it's a great help to all your colleague collection managers if you do that, because very often artists don't have work in just one collection, but their work is dispersed over several collections, and maybe you have information that somebody else hasn't, and vice versa. So helping each other is key here. There are also existing bots active on Wikidata that add a copyright status to the items of artists based on the info that's being provided, among others, by your CSV exports. So that's interesting to see, and the tool again can use these copyright statuses again to inform other users about the copyright status of their collection. Then there's also a third bot that generates dashboards for Belgian heritage organizations that was developed by CopyClear, and I think Hanno from CopyClear is present here as well. I will just give a very short overview of what this means. So this is just a sort of dashboard, a table that is created by Listeria bot, a bot that just turns a Wikidata query into a neat table. It says for each collection how many of their creators are known on Wikidata, and which percentage of them are copyright protected, belong in the public domain, or have an unknown copyright status. And for those unknowns, there is still the division, a distinction between people with a known birth date and people without a known birth date. So that's a general overview, but it's nice to see, for example, the Royal Library, if I stop moving my cursor, you will be able to see it. Yeah, Royal Library has 62 known creators on Wikidata. 8% of which is copyright protected and 92% of which is in the public domain. So of course it's not all the creators of the Royal Library of Belgium, but it gives an ID for those creators that are available on Wikidata. Also for the Department of Culture, which we just used the data from, it gives some extra information, because we can see here, for example, that 22 creators are available on Wikidata, 38% of which are copyright protected, 52% of which are in the public domain. But even maybe more interestingly, it gives you a sort of working list, because there are 2 people who have an unknown copyright status. And if we take a look at what we know about these people, we see that there is this florid statement. So we know that they have been active in 1879 and 1880. So there's great chances that they belong in the public domain. But just based on these data, we can say that for sure. So that's also a way of detecting which further research can be done to determine with certainty whether a person belongs in the public domain, yes or no. Okay, I'll leave it there, and I suggest that we leave the questions for later too, maybe, or Sam, what do you think?
I think let's leave the other questions, and I will come back to the questions in the chat. But if there's questions specifically for the public domain tool, let's take them now.
Okay. I'm all ears. I have to look at the chat. I don't know whether there are already questions there.
I don't know if it's about the tool. So if you have a specific question about the public domain tool, just unmute yourself and ask your question now, and we will take the other questions at the end of the presentations, because we're already a bit over time.
Okay, if not, let's move on. Thanks a lot. And if anything pops up later, you know where to find us.
Okay, Geert, are you able to share your screen to show us the results of the Wiki Loves Heritage photography competition?
Yes, I'm arriving.
Perfect.
Okay, try to share my screen. Okay, share.
Yeah, that's perfect, Geert. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. So welcome to the prize session of Wiki Loves Heritage 2020. I see that several of the participants are available in the session. So okay. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so this is the 3rd time we organize Wiki Loves Heritage as an extension of the worldwide Wiki Loves Monuments that is already organized since 2010. Wikimedia Belgium, we built this campaign on the Belgian freedom of panorama that was voted in 2016 by our government. And we built also on the year of the European Heritage in 2018. So the reason why we organize Wiki Loves Heritage is to conserve heritage and monuments on Wikimedia Commons by taking pictures. We built an inventory on Wikidata and on structured data for commons. And we want to use the images on Wikipedia to illustrate articles about them. So some of the participants, they only contribute to Wikimedia Commons by taking photographs, but others are also participating in several Wikipedia languages or to Wikidata. So specifically for this year, we had a few less participants than last year and less images, but I can assure you that the quality was very, very good. So there were 17 participants and 840 photos were uploaded. The 5 jury members, they selected in 3 rounds. We selected 10 winners. 6 of them were recurring winners, so that have been winner in the previous years' campaigns. And 4 winners are now for the first time winner in this this year. 1 participant won with by just uploading 1 single photo. 1 winner arrived in the 3rd round with 25 winning photos in the 3rd round. And 1 winner uploaded 260 photos in total for this campaign. So to be practical, we will only show the highest ranked photo for each of the winner. And so now I can start with the first winner. It is Rose DE, who took a picture of the Abbey of Orval. Okay, so it's a kind of picture-in-picture. So the art gives focus to the center of the picture. It is a classic photography trick, a dark foreground that frames the actual object of the photo. The trick is not applied very subtle here, but it still gives the right effect. The combination of the woman in the flowering dress and the 2 other human figures in the background and the Madonna and the child create an enigmatic tension. So Rose DE already had prizes in 2018. Okay, number 9. We have the Undergrondse begraafplaats van Laken. So it is Dirk de Nil who just registered this year to participate in this session. So it is the picture shows the bright light of an underground gallery. The technique is good, lines are straight, composition is smart with 3 vertical parts. To the left, from the left to the right, the mausoleum, a corridor with other burial niches, and the burial of Emil Boxtal. It leads the eye to the middle of the image, where a suggestion that there are more corridors on the screen. The photographer succeed in transferring a nice sentiment, and it shows that the walls and the monuments they decay over time. So this is a bit in contradiction that we want to keep the memory of the deceased persons after their life. Okay. Number 8. Het nieuwe kasteel van Petegem door Paul Hermans. Paul Hermans already is active on Wikipedia and Wikimedia Commons since 2003. So this is a very natural picture of a castle in its natural environment. It's a good composition, the correct colors, lighting. It is a classic image, but very well suited to be used as an illustration on Wikipedia. Paul already, for the several past years, he won several prizes. Then, number 7, a grave in the Africa Museum. So his Palois is active since 2008. The picture shows the content of a grave. This photo is taken indoors, so the lighting is not evident, of course. And the shadow plays a role and gives an extra dimension without making the image obscure. The content of the picture is very original, and it shows the archaeological heritage. The photograph raises more questions than it answers. And this is actually what every good photographer should do. His Palois is the first-time winner in our contest. Number 6, we have Volkskunde Museum in Brugge by Rainer Halama, registered in 2012. It contains a domestic composition of domestic household appliances. Picture is well composed, sharp and bright, and it's often difficult to take a picture of movable heritage. The lighting is very okay. It shows the light indoor and outdoor through the window, and it gives an impression of depth and gives a clear overview of the interior. Rainer is also the first-time winner in our campaign. Number 5, Carnaval van Aalst by Selsenk, registered newly in 2020. And the photographer has 3 winning photos in this campaign. So the photographer highlights the intangible heritage, something that contrasts with mostly with other monuments. Als Carnaval has been in a controversy in 2020. But this photo is technically well made. It is dynamic and it fits with the subject. The visual power shows the contrasting combination of yellow and blue, and the dynamics of the image is reinforced by the skew composition. The face and the look of the 2 dancers creates a connection with the viewer, between the participants, the photographer, and the viewer. Also, Selink is a first-time winner. Number 4, we have the monument of General Storms. The picture is special because it sheds the light on the relationship between an historical statue and the recent conflictual position of historical persons. The red paint adds a layer to the picture. Emile Pierre-Joseph Storms was a Belgian soldier, a general, an explorer of the Congo Free State. So his campaign and his men were not without violence, and the municipality of Ixelles decided to remove the statue from the park in late 2020. MD, who started in 2008, won previous prizes in our campaigns. Number 3, we have Trunov Benoit Brummer, registered in 2016. He likes to take very wide pictures. For example, already a multitude of train stations he has taken photos. This picture was well made. The lines of the building are straight. The building is in the middle of the picture and is sufficiently taking the space on the picture. The symmetry is echoed by the benches, the lampposts, the water jets, and the fountains. So the man on the bench gives a bit of a dynamic, and the taxi in the background. So it is showing a well-restored monumental building that was threatened, that was repaired after it had a decay in the last decades. So Turnoff Benoit Brummer, he won already several prizes in several previous contests by Wikimedia Belgium. Number 2, we have Herman van den Broek with Abbé de Villers. Herman started in 2018. It is a symmetrical fountain that's just in the middle of the picture. And the photographer masters the necessary technique to build a nice composition. The picture is never too bright or too dark, despite of the hard light caused by the summer sun. The composition helps the viewer to follow the picture from the front to the back. The eye of the viewer meets the different layers. So the lines of the border of the pond guide the viewer towards the ruins, which are the main subject of the photograph. Herman also won a previous prize in 2018. And then the number 1, we have Castelvan Oydunk by Johan Allard. It's a very nice composition and mirroring the castle in the middle of the water. So the image is well balanced. It invites the viewer to visit the building. The composition of the photographer thought the image well through, guiding the viewer between the trees and the right tower, the right way to the back of the picture. The darker part of the first tower in the front and the more bright tower in the back, it gives a nice contrast. So the topic is clear. Yeah, it shows a nice composition between all the different parts. So Johan Allard also won in 2018. The prize winners will all be contacted individually for the delivery of the prize. And hereby, I want to thank the jury members, Koen, Luc, Ronnie, and Sven. So thank you all for participating. And within a few months, we will have a new campaign, Wikilove's Heritage 2021. Thank you all. And now I shall...
Wij horen jou niet.
Licht, can you keep sharing your screen?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Last slides, that's just easier, I think.
Okay, but I have a separate document. I need to...
Okay, no problem. Just unshare your screen.
Yeah. Where is my session here?
Voila, so this should be mine.
Yeah.
Well, can everybody see my slide now? Okay, super. So thank you very much. Also, Geert, for showing this really lovely work that the volunteers of the Wikimedia communities are doing in terms of making heritage more visible. The only thing that really remains for me to say is that I would like to invite those who might benefit or might be interested in the workshops that are connected to our public domain event. So basically, the 1st of June, we will organize our rights workshop again. Basically, we will run through any rights-related topic you will need in order to make public domain works available. And then we also offer in September a Wikimedia upload workshop, which teaches you to release data on Wikidata, images on Wikimedia Commons, and then yeah, publish basically reproductions and data about your collections online. And our hopes for that is that the people who follow those workshops that make available public domain content, that they can then, just like some of the participants, the presenters today, talk about their objects that they released during that year. Basically, information about that will be in our newsletter and on our website soon, and will also be in the email that you all will get after the session. And then basically, I would like to just thank you for your attention, but I would also like to keep this time for answering any questions that might still be there. I saw in the chat that actually quite a lot of questions have already been answered, so I will just leave the floor open one last time for somebody who still has an outstanding question. You can just unmute yourself, and then we will. All right. Well, since it's already 4 o'clock, just thank you very much, everybody, for taking this time out. And if you're interested in the following workshops, please let us know. Okay. Have a nice rest of your day.